Striker guns usually get dinged for poor ergonomics or a bad trigger. But what if they weren't? What if a striker gun had a hammer-fired frame and you threw in a rotating barrel and make it a sweet shooter? That's the Grand Power Q100 MK23. Welcome back to the Humble Marksman channel. I'm David and this is the Grand Power MK23. Now they updated the Grand Power MK12 pistols. Largely they got a revised slide design. They got a new style of rotating barrel. It's just a little bit different. And they all got outfitted with optics cuts. And the Q100 represents basically like a Glock 17 upper on a Glock 19 lower. So what you end up getting is a 4¼ inch barrel on a grip that houses 15 rounds of 9mm. On the optics cut, I've got the Vortex Defender ST that I got from Optics Planet, so I'll be doing a review on that, so be sure and check that out. So that's the big bold strokes of the pistol, and just for full disclosure for you guys, full transparency, this gun was provided by Global Ordnance for video purposes, as well as the ammo shot in the video. No money changed hands or anything like that. But now you know. And before we go any further on this Q100, I do need to say hello to the dads out there and give you this crisp high five. And also this, what do you call a fake noodle? An impasta. The Q100 comes in a pretty good price point. It sells for just under $600, comes with 3 magazines and I believe 3 optics plates out of the box. So the gun pretty much comes set up to do more or less whatever you'd want to do with it. Now, Grand Power is a Slovakian brand. They're bigger in Europe. They're known for like the IPSC community because they end up in like the Excalibur CO match that you see here. I actually did a review on this, featured it in a few videos last year. But this is their hammer-fired kind of competition gun that is a lightweight gun with a rotating barrel and a sweet hammer-fired trigger. And that's kind of important because the Q100 shares the bones with the Excalibur. So a lot of what makes this pistol pretty awesome is present on this one as well, although it's in a bit more of a duty trim. So the 4¼ upper on that kind of 15 round lower is sort of a cool combination. I've shot the Glock 49 before, and it's a pretty sweet shooting gun as well. And this one is as well. Piled on with that, the fact that the barrel rotates, which is a nice feature. Unloaded, the gun is about 29 ounces, which puts it pretty much the exact same dimensions in size and weight as the Daniel Defense H9. And you can see them compared roughly how they shake out. The gun is a little bit heavier, about 4 ounces heavier than like a Glock 17, and that's largely due to the steel chassis that rides inside the frame, the fact that it has a full steel guide rod, and just what feels like a more dense polymer than something like the Glocks have. But what I appreciate about the gun the most is the fact that it feels like a hammer-fired gun. Like it sits in the hand, it kind of tapers at the web of your hand, where it seats right there, which is very comfortable and gets kind of bigger as it moves down the edge of the gun. And you can tell that it is a exact same frame as the Excal because the holes where the safeties would go, you can see where they are on the Grand Power there, are covered with this not at all, inconspicuous plug. So it is the exact same frame as that. So it literally has hammer-fired ergonomics because it is the same frame used in the hammer-fired gun. You ever notice how when somebody picks up like a 1911 or a CZ75, they get just jazzed with how the gun kind of sits in their hand? It feels like it's made for them. This gun kind of feels like that, so it has a very similar experience to that as far as being like a hammer-fired gun, but it is just a striker-fired trigger. And the trigger does it's very unique. It feels very much more like a very weak like double-action trigger, like it's like a very lightweight double-action trigger is more what I'd characterize it as, in so much as that there's like a wall, and you keep pulling and then the wall kind of lets go. It doesn't feel like creep. It feels too smooth to be creep, like it's like a 2-stage trigger or something, and then it lets go. But the trigger pull weight, which is suitable for like a duty pull, probably on the lighter side. I don't actually give numbers anymore because YouTube's really weird about dinging videos for that. It is a acceptable duty weight for a trigger, but on the lighter end of that spectrum, which means that you can absolutely get surprise breaks, because when I was printing groups with it, I was surprised when the trigger went off. Whoa! Okay, I went way too far down as I kind of got to know the trigger. When you combine all of those characteristics, the pretty good trigger and the rotating barrel with a very good slide design that provides great manipulation. I mean, it's got ambi control, so you can drop the slide and drop mags from the right-hand side of the pistol, and you get a gun that just performs very well. Now, this gun does kind of have my pet peeve, which is that the grip texture stops about right there and doesn't continue all the way up to the underside of the slide, because that is where you make contact with the gun to really contribute to your support hand taming recoil. And when there's no traction there and it's actually quite slippery plastic, you lose an opportunity for your support hand to contribute in controlling the gun. On the 3rd magazine, I shot through the gun after I got the optic zeroed. I ended up printing this group at 15 yards, which is pretty respectable, honestly. With the gun I was unfamiliar with a very sort of alien trigger, not so bad. Shooting the gun at speed, it still felt very controllable in spite of the traction kind of stopping on the grip. It doesn't flip around a whole lot. It actually is pretty soft shooting. It's kind of like shooting my Beretta PX4 Storm Compact. Now the reliability with the gun was just fine. I shot plenty of Igman 124 through the gun. I didn't keep count of the rounds, but it was somewhere north of 300 rounds through the pistol, as well as a couple different other brands just testing to see if it feed reliably. And because of how the feed ramp is so gentle and the magazine kind of comes pretty high up into the gun, the feed angle is pretty straight on, so I suspect that this gun would be able to handle feeding from pretty much any projectile shape or cartridge length that you threw at it. And if you look at the ejection of the gun when we're shooting it, there's a good chance it could throw just about anything out of that chamber. I mean, the Igman stuff is not loaded particularly hot. It's actually a great load for like competition shooting because it's pretty tame. And it was absolutely throwing that brass with authority away from the gun. So there's a good chance that even the lighter loaded stuff would perform very well out of this pistol. Real quickly, just want to touch on magazines. You do get 3 magazines. The 15 round Grand Power magazines are available for sale for like sub 25 bucks, which is awesome in 2024. I thought that a $20, $25 magazine was a thing of the past, but here we are, you can buy those. What is probably a bigger deal is that this would be very good for concealed carry, but as it sits right now, I can't find anybody making holsters for the MK23 variant. The slides have changed on the MK12 to the MK23. I can't validate for sure that this gun will fit in the old Grand Power holsters because basically they changed the machining where it's got like these Beretta APX ribs on the slide now. And I don't know that this will fit in the old holsters. So they're gonna have to get the holster support situation solved with some, good holsters hitting the market for this to really find its stride. So that said, you know as well as I do, if this is a duty rated gun and you put a light on it, that opens up a lot of holster supports, as there are a lot of holsters that index off the light, and you can find a holster for it that way. So either, like a TLR7 or, an X300 or TLR1, any of those will do fine on something like this. Another one is the field strip and disassembly of this gun is a little bit complex. And now if you look at it, you can see kind of the takedown tabs that are right there, but it's not like pull the takedown tabs, pull the striker, and the slide comes forward. You pull the tabs and you have to pull the slide all the way to the rear, unhook it over the rails and let it go back forward. And then the guide rod stays in the frame, which is kind of a unique design that I don't think I've seen on any other pistol. So it's almost more like a blowback style of gun on how it comes apart rather than, what you're traditionally used to. It's not that big a deal. Once you learn how to take it apart, put it back together, it's still not easy to do. It's more complex than just what the typical striker model is, but it's just a little bit more involved and requires, almost a third hand and a little bit more hand strength. Now, availability is probably another black eye that this pistol is going to get, given the fact that it is positioned as a kind of a premium pistol price point at about $600. You're probably going to want to get it in your hand and kind of look at it, see how it feels in your hand. The only place that I'm aware that you can get these things is from the internet, so you're kind of going on faith that this is a pistol that you want. And given the price point, like, there's a lot of options at that price point that exist, but the fact that you can't get your hands on this thing and appreciate how good the grip is, and it's got like 4 back straps that come with it. You can see this is the default back strap that came on it, but on the XCal, I put kind of the larger back strap on it. So you can absolutely mold the grip more or less to kind of fit in your hand. And based on how the trigger reach was, the trigger reach on this is almost like a double action trigger reach. It's kind of long. All of that to say is you don't know how the gun's going to fit in your hand. I have size XL gloves, and I find that the gun feels absolutely fantastic. So where I land on this pistol is that it's an impressive pistol, like from a quality, it's doing something different that nobody else is doing. Everybody seems to be like copy pasting from other designers, and these guys more or less kind of forged their own path and tried something truly different with the full ambi style of controls and just the rotating barrel and stuff like that. It is somewhat new, and the fact that it feels like a hammer fired gun, it feels more substantial than your typical polymer guns. It's easy to understand why Grand Power as a brand does have a bit of a cult following, and it'd be awesome if they would find more traction in the United States market. There are some headwinds that they're coming up against with like holsters and just the fact that it's difficult to put your hands on one of these things. So that is the Grand Power Q100 MK23. Thanks to Global Ordnance for letting me check this gun out. It is really cool. If you think that gun is pretty cool, you probably need to watch my video on the Grand Power Excalibur CO match that I did last year. This is a pretty awesome gun too, and it is not going to disappoint.